All right, I'm gonna try and film today outside because it's so pretty. And I'm sorry about the ambient noise of the birds chirping and cars going by, but I just needed to get out of the house for a second. So we're in chapter 19 of Great Expectations, and this is Pip's final chapter of his innocent stage. It documents 6 days before he's about to head into London, and it's kind of a long chapter, so I'm going to try and get through it as quickly as possible. So it starts off on a Sunday morning. Pip goes to church with Joe, and this parallels chapter 3, Christmas Day, when Pip and Joe had gone to church, only we see a difference in Pip. Pip now feels arrogant that he has encountered all this money, or at least this money's coming his way, and he feels that the preacher wouldn't have preached about how it's more difficult for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for the camel to fit through the eye of the needle. This is a biblical allusion here. Had he known that Pip was in the audience. You know, when little Pip had just stolen the file and the food from his family, he felt that the preacher knew and he was going to be called out. So we see a difference in conscience with Pip. Guilty Pip versus arrogant, condescending Pip. And this continues. Pip, first of all, they burn the indentures. Joe formally burns the indentures that had bound Pip as an apprentice to Joe, and Pip feels free. But that fire imagery is very symbolic. Anytime you burn something, it's irrevocably destroyed. You can't recover it. And so that's the first instance of a sever. Pip is ending his innocence and his time with the people whom love him in Kent, and he's now moving forward into this unknown territory as a gentleman in London. He has been trying to educate Joe all this time, and of course we know Joe to not be very smart. He's wise, he's very kind and caring, but he's not educated at all, kind of like Boxer. And so Joe is okay with it. He's okay with being a blacksmith. But Pip feels like Joe needs to be brought along a little bit. And so he tells Biddy on page 158, I hope that while I'm gone, you won't omit any opportunity of helping Joe on a little. And Biddy's offended. She says, why would you think that Joe would want to move to London to be with you when he may be too proud to take someone out of his place that he is competent and fills with respect? In other words, Joe is a really well-known blacksmith and he does his job well. Why would he want to move to London to be rich with you? And Pip is like, what? And he picks a fight with Biddy, and he tells her that it's a bad side of human nature. He repeats that over and over again, that Biddy is jealous of Pip. Biddy's not jealous of Pip at all. And as I mentioned in the previous video, sometimes we pick fights with people we love, especially when big change is looming. But it's really sad that he takes it out on Biddy, who's done nothing but care for Mrs. Joe, and she's been so gracious and helpful. She spent all those years teaching Pip, and now he's like, you're jealous that I've got money and you don't. Well, the irony is Pip's the one showing the bad side of human nature in that scene. The next day, Pip goes to Trabb, and he's a new character, so we're going to put him on your character chart. Make sure that you download it so you can fill in the blanks here. And this is a scene where Dickens is calling out society. He spends this novel in a lot of ways criticizing and satirizing parts of society that he feels are unjust. And Trabb has also an indentured servant, Trabb's boy. We never get to know his name. We only call him Trabb's boy. And you may recall Dickens himself, when he was 12, he had to quit school so that he could support his family. And his father had been arrested for debt, for owing money. And so Dickens himself experienced child labor. There were no laws against child labor during the Industrial Revolution. So this is Dickens calling out that child labor should be illegal. Trabb clearly abuses Trabb's boy. And really, this could be a spin-off of what Pip's life would have been like. Of course, he always had the kindness of Joe. But if Pip hadn't suddenly encountered this money, then maybe Pip would have been stuck in a similar rut that Trabb's boy is. So Trabb is the tailor. Pip walks in, and Trabb doesn't pay any mind to Pip initially. He's just eating his biscuit. But then all of a sudden, Pip shows him some money, and he's like, oh, and he jumps to his feet. So Pip is experiencing the power of money. And he's pulling out rolls of cloth, they're by numbers, number 4 or whatever, and he's yelling at Trabb's boy. He's like, you go, none of your tricks here, or you shall repent it, you young scoundrel, the longest day you have to live. So we're seeing this verbal abuse of poor Trabb's boy. But regardless, we'll see more of Trabb's boy and Trabb later. He's going to have his clothes, Pip's going to have his clothes sent to Pumblechook's. And remember, why would he choose Pumblechook of all the people in Kent to have his clothes sent to? Well, Pumblechook's going to be the one that kisses his butt. Remember, Pumblechook loves being in the person's good graces whenever he can. Now, at the end of this interaction with Trabb, bottom of 161, Trabb says, "I know, sir, that a London gentleman can't be expected to patronize local work as a rule, but if you'll give me a turn now and then in the quality of a townsman, I should greatly esteem it." In other words, he's asking Pip, once you move to London, if you'll still give me your business, I'll be so grateful. What do you think? Do you think Pip is going to give Trabb his business, or as Pip gets older and richer, is he only going to be affiliated with London businesses? We are about to enter Pip's sin stage, so we shall see. So Pip arrives at Pumblechook's, and Pumblechook calls him my dear friend. And you may have noticed a new idiosyncrasy of Pumblechook. He shakes Pip's hand 6 times, and he says, may I, may I? So, may I, over and over again. This is Pip's way of experiencing obsequious behavior from Pumblechook. And they get drunk together. And even though older Pip knows Pumblechook is a terrible person, younger Pip at that moment says, I should have taken, I'm at page 165, I could have taken 10 times as many glasses of wine as I had. But for all that, I remember feeling in that moment, I had been mistaken in Pumblechook, and that he was a sensible, practical, good-hearted prime fellow. So what money has taught Pip so far is that it gets people's attention, and it makes you feel powerful. But the people who love Pip have not changed toward him, and he is maybe upset about that. He wants more of this fawning and flattery from Joe and Biddy, who aren't going to give it to him because why should they? It's just money. So anyway, oh, did I say 6 times? I'm sorry. Pumblechook shakes his hands 7 times. It's almost hyperbolic. Pip also takes this opportunity in his new outfit to go visit Miss Havisham, and she is grinning ear to ear. It seems like she knows who Pip's benefactor is. He feels disappointed in his own clothes because really clothes are just a cover-up of who Pip really is. Pip has not yet changed. And when he arrives, Sarah Pocket answers the gate again. She's the new gatekeeper. And again, she has the walnut shell countenance as an idiosyncrasy, but also green and yellow. Her face is twisted with jealousy of Pip. She too thinks Miss Havisham might be the one giving Pip the money. And so here is Miss Havisham on her cane, like a fairy godmother. So she's no longer characterized like a skeletal witch. Now she's Pip's fairy godmother. And here's the dialogue that, actually, I think I'm going to put in a movie clip to show you the dialogue.
Miss Havisham, I wish to say how grateful I am.
You'll always keep the name of Pip,
To me, the most important line in that interchange is on page 168 when she says, "Goodbye, Pip. You will always keep the name Pip, How would Miss Havisham know that secret detail? Interesting. So the 6 days have run out, and Pip is about to leave, and it's funny, all this anticipation, it's been like a slow week, but then all of a sudden when the day comes, he runs late. He just can't get himself out of bed, but he has to call him down for breakfast. One really strange thing, I don't know if you picked up on this detail, but as he's leaving, Joe and Biddy are throwing old shoes at him to say goodbye. It must have been just an old custom. and Pip leaves, and tears start to fall. He gets on one coach ride and then another and then another, having to change, lines to get to London. It's a long journey. And he suddenly becomes aware of his own ingratitude and the way that he had treated Joe and Biddy. He thinks about going back, but he doesn't. And with an aching heart, should he have gone back and had a better parting, but he decides to just move on forward. And the last paragraph of this section reads, "We changed again and again, and it was too late and too far to go back, and so I went on. And the mists had all solemnly risen now, and the world lay spread before me. So the misty marshes, the objective correlative of his uncertain youth, has parted. The fog has cleared, and he's now going to begin a new life in London. You're going to read chapters 20 through 22 tonight, and they're not terribly long, but I want you to pay attention to how Dickens characterizes London. Is this going to meet Pip's expectations, his great expectations of becoming a gentleman? All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.